The 2024 elections are finally upon us, so I thought I would give my predictions for the results in the Western Cape. I'll give my predictions party by party, starting off with those currently in the legislature in order of how many seats they have. We will then move on to those parties who aren't yet in the provincial parliament, but who I think have a good chance of gaining one or more seats after the elections. By the way, if you're wondering why our provincial legislature in the Western Cape is referred to as a provincial parliament, it's because the Western Cape is the only province that has its own constitution. The Constitution of the Western Cape states that the legislature shall be referred to as the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. Our Executive Council is called the Provincial Cabinet, and our MECs are called Provincial Ministers. This is at least officially. In practice, many people still use the terms Legislature, Executive Council, and MEC. The Western Cape Constitution also dictates the number of seats in Parliament. The number of seats in other provinces is decided prior to each election by the Electoral Commission, and is based on the number of residents living in that particular province. For example, Gauteng has over 15 million people and has an 80-seat legislature. The Northern Cape is far less populated, and they therefore have a much smaller 30-seat legislature. However, in the Western Cape, our parliament has been limited to 42 seats since 1998 when our constitution was adopted, despite the population of the province almost doubling since then. A bill has been introduced to amend the constitution to allow more seats to be added to the legislature. However, as of date of recording, the bill has not yet been signed into law. Alright, let's get started with the video. We'll of course start off with the ruling party. The Democratic Alliance has ruled the Western Cape with an outright majority since 2009. They currently occupy 24 out of 42 seats. A lot of people on both sides of the aisle are going to be very disappointed in the Democratic Alliance's performance in this election. On the one hand, you have those who passionately despise the DA and who believe that the Patriotic Alliance and the National Coloured Congress have completely captured the coloured vote in the Western Cape, and that the DA will end up somewhere in the 30s or low 40s. On the other hand, you have DA supporters who believe that the party will maintain and possibly even grow their majority. Both of these perspectives are, however, incorrect. I believe that the DA will see a decline in support, but it will not be the huge 10 and 20 percentage point drops their political opponents are predicting. They are losing voters to the PA and other parties, but the rate at which this is happening has been greatly exaggerated. Recent by-election results have shown that the majority of the PA's growth has come at the expense of the ANC and the Good Party, and the PA support is also strongest amongst rural communities. Most people in the Western Cape live in the city of Cape Town, which at least for now remains a DA stronghold. So I predict that the DA will land somewhere in the mid to high 40s and will need the support of one or more of their MPC partners to form a government. This will be a blow to the party. The Western Cape has been their flagship province for the past 15 years, and losing their majority is going to cause a drop in morale, not only within the party, but also amongst their supporters. But they will of course still be the biggest party in Parliament, and with the help of the ACDP or Freedom Front Plus, they will continue to control the province. Just as a side note, Alan Winde has stated that he will resign if the DA loses their majority in the province.
Any event that you fall below 50%, or if there's an ANC
Well,
election?
if I fall below 50%, then I have to leave, right? Because the voters don't want it.
Really? So you're saying now if the vote falls below 50%, you're going to resign?
I'll have to.
If he does follow through with this promise, it will be interesting to see who replaces him. My bet is on Tertius Simmers, who is the Provincial Minister of Infrastructure and the DA's provincial leader. Moving on to the official opposition. The ANC's story in the Western Cape has been a sad and pathetic one. Unlike in the other 8 provinces, they've never won a majority here. The closest they came was in 2004 when they got 45% of the vote and formed a coalition with the New National Party to run the province. Ever since then, it has been a downward spiral, with them only managing to get 28% in the 2019 election. While they will still remain the second biggest party, I think this year will continue the trend of their decline. Their leader, Cameron Dugmore, is basically a white version of Cyril Ramaphosa. He is weak, indecisive, and uninspiring. But Mr. Dugmore is not solely responsible for the ANC's lackluster performance in the province. Most of the blame lies with his colleagues in other provinces and at the national level. You see, other opposition parties in the Western Cape can say and promise whatever they want, because they don't govern anywhere else. There's no way to prove that they are just blowing smoke. But when Cameron Dugmore stands before the people of the Western Cape and says that if they vote for him he will change their lives for the better, all they need to do is look at the rest of the country where the ANC governs to know he is lying. In 2019, the EFF received 4% of all votes cast in the Western Cape, making them the third largest party in the province. Between 2014 and 2019, the EFF was able to almost double their support from 44,000 votes to 83,000. They may or may not be able to achieve this again, but without a shadow of a doubt they will continue to grow. They currently have 2 seats, and I see them gaining at least 1 more. Possibly 2. And that's about it for the EFF. They don't play such a big role in our province's politics. They are, of course, active and noisy, but their role is much smaller in the Western Cape than it is in other provinces. Good is gone for good in the Western Cape, and probably on the national level too. I will be surprised if they make it back to the provincial parliament. They currently only have 1 seat and are hemorrhaging support to the PA. Patricia de Lille's association with the ANC seems to have hurt her image, and a lot of people who voted for Good feel they didn't get much for their vote. The party went largely quiet following the 2019 election, and then suddenly started making a bit of noise in the months and weeks leading up to this one. I think May 29th will send a strong message to Auntie Pat that it's time for her and her party to retire. The ACDP has been in the Western Cape legislature since 1994. They've always fluctuated between 1 and 2 seats and for the most part have stayed under the radar. That may, however, change if they are asked to form a government with the DA. In terms of their support, I don't see any big changes happening. They will retain the seat they have and possibly gain a second. I suspect the Freedom Front Plus will be very happy with the results of the elections. They currently only occupy 1 seat, but I can see that easily growing to 2. They have run a solid campaign in the Western Cape, and they've also made small inroads into the coloured electorate. Considering the DA is likely to drop below 50%, the Freedom Front Plus, together with the ACDP, may have a bigger role to play in the province's politics. Al-Jamar received the least amount of votes out of any party in the provincial legislature, and thus got what is often referred to as the lucky loser seat, which are seats awarded to parties based on leftover votes after the initial proportional distribution. So basically, Al-Jamar was lucky to get in the first place, and I'm not convinced they'll be able to do it again, especially considering this will be a much more hotly contested election as compared to 2019. They may pick up a few extra votes due to their hardline anti-Israel stance, but I don't know if that will be enough to get them over the line. We'll just have to wait and see. Now, moving on to parties who aren't currently in the provincial parliament, but probably will be after May 29th. Starting off with the Patriotic Alliance, the Green Machine has been hard at work all over the Western Cape. Ever since Gayton McKenzie became mayor of Central Karoo 3 years ago, the party has grown from strength to strength. Around 35,000 people in the Western Cape voted for the PA in the 2021 local government election, and I suspect that number will double, triple, or even quadruple. If so, they may end up with up to 4 seats in the legislature. One of those seats will come at Good's expense, and the other 3 will come from the ANC and the DA. The Patriotic Alliance will definitely be the breakout star of the 2024 elections in the Western Cape. I can see Gayton McKenzie and Kenny Kunene popping bottles after the results are announced. The NCC is an interesting party. They were formed just prior to the 2021 local government elections and only contested the city of Cape Town and a few surrounding municipalities. But with a budget of only 40,000 rand, they managed to convince 25,000 people to vote for them, most of these votes coming from the Cape Flats. If they manage to retain these 25,000 voters, that should be enough to get their leader, Fadiel Adams, a seat. But I do see them growing, not at the same rate as the PA, but there definitely will be some growth. Whether that growth will be enough to secure them 2 seats is yet to be seen, but they are pretty much assured at least 1. Action SA has run a pretty lackluster campaign in the Western Cape. They do have their posters up everywhere, and the candidates have been making a bit of noise on social media, but it's clear that the party is expending most of their resources in Gauteng, where it is most popular. However, Herman Mashaba has built a solid brand for his party over the past 2 years, and they do have some support in the Western Cape, and that support may just get them over the line to win a single seat, but I'm less confident in Action SA's success than I am in the PAs or NCCs. Lastly is the Referendum Party, which was founded by Phil Craig in 2023. It is a single-issue party whose only goal and policy is to get a referendum on Cape independence. The party has never contested any elections before, so it's a bit difficult to gauge their support. However, another Cape secessionist party, the Cape Independence Party, did contest the 2019 elections and got around 9,000 votes in the province. Now, the CIP isn't contesting this year, so assuming the Referendum Party is able to pick up those 9,000 votes and pick up a few thousand more, which shouldn't be too difficult considering how much momentum the Cape independence movement has gained in the past 5 years, they may be able to land in the 15 to 20,000 vote region, which could get them the lucky loser seat that went to Al Jamar last time. So those are the 4 parties who I think have a decent chance of entering the Western Cape Provincial Parliament for the first time. This is what the legislature currently looks like. And this is what I think it will look like after May 29th. Just a word about Rise Mzansi and MK. I don't see either of them getting a seat. Rise Mzansi has bought a lot of airtime in the media, but I don't think that they have many genuine supporters. They may be able to scrape together enough votes for a seat or 2 at national level, but it's unlikely they will make it in the provincial parliament. And MK's support is centered in KZN and part of Mpumalanga. They won't make too much of an impact in the Western Cape, certainly not enough to warrant a seat in the legislature. Alright guys, so that's my predictions. Please go ahead and post yours in the comments. I'll be very interested to see them. And if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing.